Welcome back to Deric and Harris podcast. And today's topic, we're going to talk about something that we face, especially when we are, as you know, people who's going through starting their own business. I think the number one thing is like failures, right? So I think both of us have had our fair share of failures throughout life, and I think like we can talk a little bit about, maybe we can talk about failures in business, failures in other aspects as well. Yeah. But maybe Deric, like
Why did you choose this topic?
failures are actually like it was last week that we were talking about what we did.
To transition from a stable job into business, right? Then
Correct.
through the process, we talked a lot about failures as well. So why do you choose this topic? You want to go
failures-
deeper into failures?
Yeah. And I think it's something that people might not have. People might think business is like, oh wow, because I think you also mentioned like, okay, we hit this revenue this month, but they never hear about the story from the start till how you reach to a sizable like revenue and
I think
and team,
failure
right?
is just the prerequisite to success, right? No one will be able to achieve any forms of success without failure, right? I mean, the world's fastest runner, the world's best badminton player, they all have lost at some point in their career. So I think, it's normal. You need to fail. Let's put it that way, right? If you don't fail, then maybe you may take things for granted, and maybe you're a very talented person, and the first time you lose, and then you just lose. You just can't deal with it very well, right? So for you, Harris, I think you haven't answered me. Why did you?
Why did I
choose
choose
this topic?
failure? I think it's also to just share like, number one, just to like, I think failures humanize success. Yeah, because like if you just see a lot of success, right? You might think that, oh my god, like Deric, he was born with this gift, right? So it's like for me, it's just like let's share. I think also failure is also sharing our vulnerabilities, which not a lot of people share.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I think it's good for us, and at the same time it's also good
Okay,
for
let's
people.
start. Let's start.
Okay.
So let's go into failures. What does failure mean?
Okay, to me, to be honest, I think failure is just to stop. Like you just stop and not continue on.
No, that's failure in one thing. But what does failure mean in a broad sense, right? Failure just means you failed to achieve something you want to achieve.
Yeah,
you want to achieve something,
you've
but you
achieved.
didn't achieve it. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Whether you continue or not, that's a failure to be consistent. Not continuing is a failure to be consistent,
True.
right? You aim to be consistent, but you fail. You aim to go to the gym 10 hours a week, but you failed, right?
Yeah.
So failure just means you didn't achieve what you set out to achieve.
Yes.
That's failure,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think we live in a dynamic world where it's player versus player. What I mean by that, it means that you don't exist on this world yourself. You are in constant competition with someone else, right? And the moment you let loose a little bit, your competitors will come out and eat you out, right? And it's just the laws of nature to human life, right? Everything is relative, right? The very fact that we have scarce resource, the very first day that we were put on earth, we knew that there was scarce resource and people had to fight for those resources, right? So which also means that at some point you will lose, because whenever there's scarce resource, you have to fight for it. You will lose, right? And yes, and that's what makes you fail in doing something. You want to secure food. There's only one coconut on the floor. You got to fight with someone for it, right? If you fail, then you lost that coconut for the day, right? So I think failures are okay, but if you make those kind of like, I still forgot the word where I said like failures that will kill you, right? Those kind of like.
Oh, yeah.
Bad failures, right?
Yes.
That one, don't take so much of that. But what about you, Harris, in terms of your failures that you've gone through in life, right? What's one? I'm not gonna ask you to share the biggest failure, but I would say maybe share a failure that you felt was necessary in life, in your journey, whatever it is, a necessary failure.
Necessary failure that I went through. I think I'll go more to a personal level. I think one failure that I went through is because I have a couple, but I also want to like focus on one. But at the top of my head, I would say that Wow, because so I'll just say lah. So for me, I think one failure that I remember was one failure that I remember was basically I failed to be a good leader back when I was in like high school or secondary school, right? To be a good leader in terms of being the head of orientation camp. So I was like the head of orientation camp for in this club called National Police Cadet Corps. So think of it as being policemen but younger, or being a scouts but police version. So I was in charge of this like camp orientation, and I think I failed as a leader is because number one, I remember when we finished an activity, then there was some spare time after that, and I told the campers, right, to like go back to their rooms and to rest. And then one of my seniors came up to me and said, "Hey Haris, so what's next? And I say, "Oh, I asked them to rest." And I said, "Oh, is that something that you're supposed to do? Like, are they supposed to rest? Because back then, like, we were quite like how to say, like as police cadet corps or cadets, right? We are supposed to train our campers very like at a intense manner lah, meaning like they shouldn't have any rest in between. So that was one thing that I failed as a leader, to like plan properly and to also like have activities in a way that's more, I would say, realistic and planned so far.
Why is this a necessary failure?
Because I realized that I thought just being a leader was a cool thing. Like I thought like, okay, I just plan whatever I think it's good, but I didn't really really go through the plan.
But
like,
why is this necessary?
I think it made me realize to plan properly, because I think after that I realized that being someone as a head, I need to, number one, like,
What would life be if we didn't have gone through this failure?
I'll probably be a very bad like planner, meaning that people will just feel lost if I were to plan an activity, that kind of thing lah. So it's like it helped me push towards a better structure in terms of being like a planner lah, essentially. Because if I didn't go through it, right, then I wouldn't have to think the what ifs, because there's a lot of what ifs that happens in situations, right? What if we ended early? What happened if we had when it rains? So you need to have backup activities, which I think I didn't have. So that was like a huge point of my time. I was like, oh shit, like, and so like, okay, I cannot be this kind of person anymore. I need to plan properly. I need to think about others instead of myself.
So the second order effect to this failure is you started to learn how to plan for others, and you plan for a backup plans in case something goes wrong.
Correct.
That's why this is necessary, because this then encompasses to other elements of your life, because now you can start planning, thinking and planning for others that you're managing, and also planning what if things went wrong.
Correct.
Amazing. I think that's a great one.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share on this? Any takeaways?
I think just like for me, it's good to go through these kind of failures to learn. And sometimes it comes to a point where it's so hard, like it makes you feel very uncomfortable, but to a point that you change behavior. So it's like, I feel that failure is a lesson that you will learn at a point of time that will really change you as a person. And the higher you go in terms of like taking opportunities, whether you want to be ahead of something or whatever, right? The more you will learn, and the more that you will improve as a person. And if you like that journey, you will change as a person as well. Yeah. So I think like failures are, like, people think of it as a negative thing, but I feel it's such a positive thing for you to someone that you want to be. Like, for example, you want to be a head of something, or you want to be a great person. Like, you cannot be a great person without failures, right? You cannot be a good like the best if you haven't failed.
So let me go back to the question. My question was, why was failing necessary, right? I'm not asking about in general why all this kind of stuff. We can go there later, but I think coming back to why failure is necessary, to me, I think I could share an experience where back in the days when I was learning to code, I think it was essential. Two things, two examples. learning to code in my self-taught journey, learning to code, and also my process of building my first few failed ventures, my first few tech startups that I failed, I was just really thinking I can learn to code, my own two hands, I can build like a bunch of tech startups that's making me passive income every single month, just give me $10,000 MRR, monthly recurring revenue, and I'm good to go, right?
Yeah.
That was my whole idea, right? But see, the beauty about failing in those things, it makes me realize that, look, number one, it made me realize that, look, self-learning to code is not easy. Coding is not easy. If I didn't fail, I self-learned for 8 months around there. And in the process of 8 months, I gave up like 3 or 4 times. And I started learning UI, UX, marketing, all that kind of stuff, right? But if I didn't give up, I would have said, isn't this so damn easy? That wouldn't have enabled me to relate to all the students that I'm dealing with right now, with all the other people that I'm doing content for. Whenever I meet someone and they tell me, hey Deric, it's so hard to learn a new skill, it's impossible, I can now relate to them. I understand how they felt because I've been through it myself. And through this process, I have also built a form of resilience to go through when things get tough. Because I've done something that's unthinkable, learning to code, building full stack web applications from scratch in 3 months. I was able to do that myself, self-taught. So that itself, that failure allows me to then understand how difficult it is to then do things to fix this failure and to overcome it and to become better myself, right? So it gives me that resilience to become better, to fight even though it's tough.
True.
In every element of my life.
Yeah.
And the same applies to when I was building tech startups, when I was, I was just building, and then no one used my platform, and I just wasted like 100K and a few months, 100,000 ringgit and a few months in, and that was a failure in myself, right? Without that failure, I wouldn't understand, because only after failing building my startup, I had to learn up marketing myself. I have to learn up pitching myself. I have to learn up software development myself, right? After failing to raise funds to my startup, then I had to do these things myself because I had no other choice. So failing in a way is essential because without it, I wouldn't have learned or built the kind of mental models that I have today, right? Of course, you can argue, okay, how about living a winner's life? Some people are just so lucky, they go through life winning forever. So maybe there's like 0.1% of people out there who's like so damn stacked in life that they just have it on like easy mode, just passing everything, winning everything. But I think if that is you may miss out on some fundamental building blocks of what makes someone who's resilient, what makes someone who's able to fight even when times are tough. Yeah, so I think that's why failing is necessary.
How do you overcome the fear of failure? Because
I said, because of those two experiences I've been through, I had no choice. Right? If I didn't fail, I would still have that fear of failure. A lot of people were saying things like, oh, I'm so scared of failing. Obviously, life circumstances come into play. Some people have kids, their family. I don't want to compare with them. Yeah. I'm saying for another person who was at my position back then, a lot of them who are my friends as well, didn't take the plunge. Even if they did take the plunge, they gave up after a couple of months. Right? So for them, they didn't build the fundamental building blocks. Maybe they had it easy at the start. I don't know. Maybe something in their life made it just so easy to start. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they were able to bring to a level where, let's say they made 100K because they started off with their parents' funding, for example. They started off with whatever grants they have, for example. They had a government grant or whatever. Right. Maybe they started off on the right foot. They didn't have to. So maybe they went in with the impression that things were not as difficult as they thought. And when shit hits the roof, they're like, oh shit, that's it.
You think that is the turning point for someone who becomes even more successful?
Yes. Like without failing, I think you will not be able to, like I said, that character that you have, you only build, like you said as well, you need failures to build success. You need failures to understand what's right, to understand how to go through even when things are getting tough.
True.
So every champion was once a failure. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
If you don't fail, you basically have no shot at winning. It just means you're not taking enough shots.
Yeah.
If you don't miss, you're just not shooting, right? Everyone who picked up a gun has missed a bullet before. If you've never missed before, it just means you never shot a bullet.
That's me. I've shot bullets before, I've missed. Yeah. I think to add on into like the coding experience, right? I also went through coding, but in a boot camp. And I think it's a shitty feeling when you fail. I don't think anybody feel happy when they fail.
Yep.
But the thing is that I agree that what you do after you fail actually builds up character.
Yep.
You can either give up or you can either continue. And it's okay that if you give up and you try again, then that's fine because you're building persistence to build up lah. Like for me, I wasn't the fastest coder back then in the bootcamp. All my other classmates are way better than me. And somehow I said, in a way lah, no choice. I literally put almost all my savings to the bootcamp. And if I don't made it successful, right, then like, what a waste of money and time lah. So I really had to push myself, even though I wasn't the best. But some of my classmates already had coding experience back then. So I was like, how am I? But in the end, I pushed through and managed to, graduate and got a job law. So it's like, do you feel that like after you go through failures, you want to take even more risks? Like,
yeah, because only after failing and being able to overcome those failures, I understand that you got to keep trying, right? Maybe some people just didn't overcome their failures, and that's important as well. You need to stack some small wins for yourself to just have that level of confidence that, look, I can get through this. And it's like for me, right, whenever it comes to learning new skills, or I do some jiu-jitsu, I do some CrossFit, I do some mobility training and stuff like that. I do business, I do marketing. It's like failing is a prerequisite for me now. The way I see it is like, it doesn't even affect me anymore. If I fail 10 times, I'm like, okay, sure. It's like, I've already built that stamina to failing, right? Some people is like, oh shit, fail once, and that's it lah.
Yeah.
That's it, it's not for me, right? For me, it's like, I already expected myself to fail. I've already come to terms that I'm not that different from everyone else. It's just the laws of nature that you fail. And if you don't fail, it just means you're not taking most bets. It's like, for example, use a gambling example here, Lara. If you're playing poker, and I can play very safe.
Yes.
Right? I can just fold every single hand. The way we play poker, right? So the way poker works is when someone makes a call, you have to decide whether, let's say he raises $5. You have to decide, do you want to raise $5 and play against him, right? If I don't want to take that bet, if I take that bet, I might win $5 or more, right? But if I don't take that bet, I just don't lose that, right? That's it, right? But the thing is, I will never also stand a shot at winning.
True. But the thing is that plays on risks, right? Like, of course, when you take risks, then there's a shot to win.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, like, going back to failure of like, I feel like the fear of failure is still apparent in people. Is mainly,
I think it's a muscle, right?
Yes. So at the same time, I also want to talk about like how to reframe failure, because
Okay, yeah. Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah. So it's like because you build muscle to go through failure, knowing that you are improving. So it's like in Alex Hormozi, when he was talking about sales, right? He said that instead of saying, "Oh, you fail," right? Or because sales is always either a yes or no, right? So the thing is that he said, "Okay, today I want to at least have maybe 20 no's," for example, for someone who starts. Because most of the time, for someone who starts, they are beginner, they don't know how to do it, they're just starting out, and most of the time they fail. So it's like, okay, for today, I need 20 no's. And now they don't think of failure as like, oh shit, I'm shit. Instead, oh, it's part of the process.
Yeah. Correct.
So
you have factored in failure as part of the process, right?
Yes,
Like for example,
correct.
maybe some people on their first YouTube video, they have 100,000
7 views.
for example, 100,000 views on their first YouTube videos,
Yeah.
right? So for them, it's like they didn't fail. They don't know. But for us, or I think for a vast majority of people, it's like the first video you launch is going to be what, 10 views, 100 views. It's like, so what? Like, yes, it sucks, but we factor it in. You are one less video to your success, right?
To whatever
Yeah,
number
I
you
can't
want.
really speak for content creation because I never really made it before, but it just applies to every other business model, right? For example, if you're trying to optimize for a landing page views or conversion rate optimization, it's like, if the first thing you do has gotten you results, great. But if it doesn't, then you gotta start figuring out, okay, copywriting. Am I saying the right thing? Is my offer good enough? You gotta start going deep to kind of A/B test and deconstruct your whole page to see if your offer is even valid, right? Which I think has a lot of beauty to it.
Yeah. And I think like the more you fail, the more you're comfortable with failure, right?
Yes.
But when is it come to a point where you shouldn't fail as much as you were starting out? Meaning, like, for example, sales, right? You get 20 no's.
You should always be failing.
Yes. But
If the day you stop failing is the day you stop learning. The day you stop failing is the day you stop taking risks.
Yes. But what I'm saying is that for example, let's go extreme. We posted this podcast for 10 years and it still get 100 views. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
When
Is your
is it-
metric for success views? Because you mentioned it's not.
Oh yeah. I mean, no,
Right.
but it's like, when is it like a stop and move on kind of thing? So
Stop
it's,
and move on.
yeah.
kind of
So
thing.
like, for example, we do business, right? Then
No,
you
can you put food on the table or not?
food.
Can you put food on the table? I'm not relying on this podcast to put food on the table.
Yes,
so it's
yes,
different,
yes.
right?
Yes.
But if you're talking about putting food on the table, then I need to make it work.
Correct.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is your question? What's the context here in your question?
So I think the context would be better that, for example, what if I'm doing business and then I've only earned $1,000 per month?
Okay.
Right.
Well, can
That's
you put food on the
barely-
table?
Like barely.
Can you put food on the table?
Yes.
Can you afford a family?
No.
Can you live a life? Okay, then how? Do you keep doing this and see your wife suffer and your kids have no milk? Right? So if you're okay with just living with $1,000 and your wife is okay and your kids are okay, you live on government funding or whatever, sure. I mean, if that's a life you want to live, but for me it's like you gotta cover your base first.
Right.
I need to at the very least be able to take care of my loved ones on the base level. So
Okay.
base level again is
Yeah.
defined because
Yes.
$1,000 can be your base level.
Correct.
For me, maybe it's $10,000. I don't
Right.
know, but you got to define your base level, and if and only when you've secured your base level of financial, emotional, spiritual security for your family members and your loved ones, then only I think we can continue basically failing forever. And for me, it's like we need to have a quota for failing. I want to know what have you done this quarter that has failed. Because if everything you do, nothing failed, you didn't try anything that would make a significant impact to the company.
Or improvement,
Because
right?
you're just doing things that you know already works. That's what everybody knows, right? But every startup out there that has achieved contrarian results are doing contrarian things. And there is, by default, a risk of failing. If you don't want to have a risk of failing, just do what everyone is doing. Open up a restaurant in central KL. For example, I mean, I'm not downplaying restaurants, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that a restaurant in KL, which is the busiest city in Malaysia, by default, there will be hungry people. Don't even need to innovate so much on the food, right? Just sell rice and chicken, for example.
Nasi lemak.
You will be able to do okay because it's just food.
Yeah.
But now, if you want to start, if you're working on a path of continuous self-improvement, you're working on a path where you want more than just selling rice and making the normal whatever GDP for nasi lemak or chicken rice is, then you start innovating. You're saying things like, oh, I'm going to put durian on rice, for example. There could be an audience for it, right? You never know. It could be a big hit, right? There are some people who put like durian with curry noodles, for example, which is absolutely disgusting, in my opinion, but they were featured on press. Were you featured on press? No, you were not. They did, right? They did it. Some people liked it. They created a following out of it because they took that. Yeah, people like me and you would have judged them. We didn't like them, but like, hey, that's the whole point of entrepreneurship. It's doing something that will put you at a risk of failing. Because if you're never at a risk of failing, it just means that you're doing what everyone else is doing, basically.
And that's okay if you want it.
Then that's okay. Yes,
Yeah.
gotta
It's okay.
say
It's-
that's
it's
completely
okay.
fine if you
Yeah.
want to. Completely fine.
Yeah.
But our
yeah.
Wi-Fi password is #innovate or die.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Innovate or die, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, for me, it's like we need to innovate, and by default, that means failures. Failures is common. Whenever my team fails, I want them to fail. Just don't repeat it again, right?
And also learn.
I've worked with just don't repeat again.
Yes.
Since you learn it, right? I've worked with some companies that are a lot more. There's a lot more bureaucracy to it, right? They literally don't allow you to fail. They punish you every time you fail. Which means, what kind of culture are you trying to build, right? If you want to build a culture where there's like no one is gonna take a risk, which means no one is gonna get you outsized returns, then build that culture like that, right? And maybe in certain cultures you need to be like that. Maybe in doctor, like you're a doctor, you're a surgeon, you don't want to fail.
Can't risk it.
You can't risk it, right? You just want to get it done. So it's very different. Depends on your industry. Depends on what can you risk, right? What if you gotta weigh it yourself, right? What if you open a restaurant in KL, then you're gonna take some crazy bet like put durian on rice, for example,
Yes,
and then you
yes.
lose all your customers.
Yeah.
Then you cannot put food on the table anymore. You cannot pay your wife. You cannot buy a healthy and happy life for your family anymore. Is that worth it? Maybe not anymore, right?
Yeah.
But if the downside is okay lah, maybe my revenue tanks 20%, but the upside is I may be able to 20x my business. Now, is that a risk you want to take? Yes, for me, right? So this isn't so much about failing, all right? This is more. I relate it all back to risk because failing ties to risk.
Yes.
Because if there's no risk, then I can fail forever. There's no.
Correct.
There's nothing to discuss about.
Yes.
When there's no cost to failing, there's nothing to discuss about. Failure always has a cost.
Yes. True.
Be it time or money or your reputation or your social proof, whatever it is, there's always a cost, because if there's no cost, then we don't have nothing to talk about.
Right. Do you think there's a golden ratio for risks or failures?
Okay,
So it's
ratio.
like, for example, doing business, should you do 100% risk? Doing something
That's down to your personal preference, really, right?
Right.
It's like how would you split your portfolio? I mean, do we want to go to finance now, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like if you want to put 100% of all of your net worth in.
I mean, like, do what works that generate revenue, right? But at the same time, is there a percentage where you explore certain things that maybe, like you say, like 20x your revenue?
It
So is
depends
there
on
like
what kind of business you're in. If you're a surgeon, then you can't do that. If you're a nasi lemak stall, maybe. Your university, maybe different, right? So it really depends. And I think if you want to dive deeper in this topic, we have to choose a niche and dive into it and talk about it, right? We need to be contextual, because I don't want to be giving advice like, oh,
everything
go all
has
in,
a
right? Go all in. It's like, no,
golden
it depends
ratio.
on you. It depends on you.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think like fundamentally, failure is a part of life, right?
Yes.
It's something that I think everyone faces, but it's just that do you have the appetite to take in a lot of failures?
No, for
or
me,
risks,
it's like
right?
you need to fail every single day. Fail every single week. You have a quota for failing. Did I meet my failing quota? If you didn't meet your failing quota, you are not improving as a person. That's it, right? And that's fine. But for me, I value self-improvement. For me, everything else is okay as long as I improve a little bit every single day.
Right.
And don't lose my business, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, that's for me.
Small wins, right?
Small wins. Stack small wins.
Yeah. And the thing is that make failure as like Deric said, a quota lor. Have you
failed today?
yes.
Have you failed today, right? Have you failed today? I think
Yeah.
I've been to, we've gotten comfortable in certain periods of my career where I stopped taking risk. It's comfortable, don't get me wrong, it's fun, it's okay. It's not fun, sorry, it's okay, it's comfortable, it's secure, but it doesn't fuel my soul. You know, it's just, I'm just surviving, I'm just there, I want to like, let's do this, and let's see what kind of impact we can get.
Do you think like the biggest failure, there's a quote, the biggest failure is not taking risks, something like that. Or the biggest risk is not taking risks, right?
True.
So it's like in the age of like the current tech right now that we are following, right? Like I'm seeing a lot of non-coders taking risks to just experiment building applications. And sometimes they fail. But the thing is like,
What risk are they taking?
huh?
What risk are they taking? What's the downside? If there's no downside, I don't want to talk about it.
Actually, that's
I don't want to talk
true.
about it. Yeah, because if there's no downside,
Right.
someone can fail forever. If my father is the richest man in the world, I can fail 1,000 mamak restaurants. It doesn't matter because there's no downside risk for me. So I don't want to talk about it if there's no downside risk.
Right.
Yeah, it's not worthy of conversation. Basically saying, Derek, if you're infinite money, Derek, if you won't die, what will you do? It's like, it's different already, right?
True lah.
Yeah, but going back to this, if you could tell younger Haris when you were 20 years old one thing about this topic, what would that be? If a 20-year-old Haris Samingan was watching this,
I would say that go take the thing that you are afraid of failing, like faster. Like don't need to wait. Just fail because you won't die unless.
Plus, you're 20 years old, so it's like the world is a lot more forgiving.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right.
You're young. You're young, and
dumb.
like
you're expected to be dumb. Right?
Yes,
you're not
exactly.
expected to be a genius. You're not expected to
Right.
provide.
Yes.
You're not getting paid to do anything. You're just there. You're a student.
Yep.
And all that. For me, what I would say to 20-year-old Deric is the size. Okay.
size.
No. The how do I put this in a very nice way, right? The level of respect or the level of status a hero gets is directly proportional to the level of enemy he's fighting against. Which means, what do you think, for example, if your enemy is someone who's weak, do you think your story is interesting?
No.
No. If your enemy is, if you, Haris Samingan, you are fighting against Superman now, your enemy is Superman, your chances of failure is a lot higher, but that's what makes a great story. Haris Samingan defeated Superman. That's worthy of a hero's journey. If Haris Samingan beat, I don't know, Chichak Man or
Some random
random weak, Haris Samingan defeated a baby in a battle. Come on, is that worthy of things? No. The point I'm trying to make here is the returns are directly proportional to the level of challenges you face in life. And that's it. And with that comes failure. Because the bigger the obstacle, the higher the chance of failure. And the more outsized benefits you get if you make it.
Right.
So fail. Always fail. If you don't want to fail, go and fight a baby and live a life that no one knows about.
Yeah. So in a way, make your life as an epic story or movie.
That's
like that.
not what I said, but that's not what I said. Yeah, that's not what I said.
No. Essentially, fight the biggest.
Essentially, if you want to
challenge.
live a life worth remembering, a life worth respected, it's measured based on what kind of failures you've risked. There has to be something to lose.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If you fight a baby, no one cares.
No one cares, right? But if you go on a direct battle with,
Superman.
let's say, I don't know, like back in the days when, let's say, the during the British colonialism era, they came to Malaysia. That if you stood up against them back then, you instantly became a hero. You may die, right? So of course you have to do the math yourself, whether it's worth or not. You may die, but you go down in the box as someone to remember, right?
Yeah.
So choose your path. Choose your path. I think at the end of the day,
Yeah.
choose your path. That's why I think risk is a big part of this equation because it's like if I take this risk, the whole world knows who I am, but I die today.
Right.
Do I want that? No, I don't want that. I don't want that. That's
No,
why
it depends.
I need to.
Depends
No, I don't
some
want
people,
that. Some people, I don't want that.
Yes.
Some people may want that. Some people
Correct,
may want that. I don't want that because I have more things to achieve. I want to spend more time with my loved ones.
Yeah.
So I will always measure it back to the downside.
Yeah.
Downside versus upside. I will never go and do anything that can kill me or my businesses.
Yeah.
I will take calculated risk for outsized benefits.
True.
For every 1 unit of risk, however you measure risk, for every 1 unit of risk I take, I want like at least triple, double, and above kind of returns.
Yeah,
that I
of
get,
course.
Right? It's not like one and then I risk one and I get 1.1. No, I want risk one, I get 2. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I think that's just me right now at my current stage. I'm 27 years old this year. I think a lot more to learn, but I think this is how I would want to take step one step at a time. So not too safe and not too risky. Somewhere in the middle where it makes rational sense as well.
Because if it's too risky, then you might lose everything.
Correct. Right. And if it's too rational, it means you're not making any upside bets.
It can actually go down also.
No, that's not what I'm trying to say.
No.
What I'm trying to say, if it makes too much sense to be making money, it just means there's no space for outsized returns already. It's just 1 + 1 is 2. There's no mystery. There's no magical number over there.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes outsized gains require a bigger outsized
Definitely,
risk that we take.
And
right.
It's scary lah. It's scary.
It has to be scary.
Scary.
If it's not scary, it's not worth telling. Right?
True.
Your story about you coming from Singapore to Malaysia is a story worth telling because it's scary.
Yep.
Because it is weird.
Yes.
It's out of the ordinary. A Malaysian going to Singapore, come on.
It's so common.
Come on, everyone does that, right?
So
like
bloody
come on,
common.
you're just another dude going to Singapore for whatever,
Yeah.
for better
True,
currency. Whatever.
true,
There's
yeah.
nothing to. I don't want to use the
talk
word
about
respect.
lah.
I don't use the word respect because
But it's like
it's nothing to. There's nothing.
It makes
that's not-
sense.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's
It
so
makes
logical.
sense.
It's like
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
but for your story, you left your life in Singapore. I don't know how good your life was, right? But the point is, you were in a more developed country where you could have been paying, I don't know, 4,000 Sing or getting paid 4,000 Sing, but you came to Malaysia and it must have been scary because you don't know the language. Maybe you knew, right? Because you're Malay, but the culture you didn't know, and you definitely are not Malaysian. You don't even know how different we are. You don't know anything about Malaysia, basically.
I don't know whether it's safe or not.
Right? Yeah, you don't know
Kind of thing.
anything. So you took that, and I think that is a story worth
Of
telling.
course, definitely.
Right? So would you say your journey in Malaysia was a failure then?
No lah. I would say it's just a point of life. I don't really. I mean, it's something that I learned. I mean, you must define what failure is.
True.
Yeah, right.
True.
For me, I never think about things as failure, but learning
Come on.
points.
If you say this,
No, my
you
failure.
just remove the whole purpose of this video.
Sorry. Did I fail in Malaysia? In honesty, no.
Okay.
Because I would fail if I don't learn anything.
Yeah. Got it.
Honestly, like.
So the way Hari structures it is
Yeah.
he will fail. I mean, of course, everyone has a different definition of defining failure, but the way he structures it, which I really agree, is say again.
I define failure as if I don't learn anything. Yeah. Like if I'm here for 1 year and literally from the start till the end, nothing changes according to my behavior.
No, even if but you took so much risk to come over here.
Oh yeah, of course.
And the amount of learnings you have has to be more than just a little bit.
Correct.
Right? So you need to
it
get
cannot,
out.
it cannot be like, oh, I know how to go back to my place.
No, it's like if you could have done this learning in Singapore, then it wouldn't have been worth you coming already.
Yeah,
so now the question is
exactly.
opportunity cost, right? The
Yes,
question now is,
correct.
was it worth you? Did
Oh
you
yeah,
get,
definitely.
Definitely,
Yes.
right? You feel like you learn a lot in your journey
Correct.
here.
Yeah, so I think like for me, it's like, for me, to be honest, I don't see Malaysia as a risk. Yes. And also at the same time, like I've learned a lot more. And the thing is that opportunity cost, I don't even talk about opportunity cost, I talk about opportunity. Because right, in Sigma School, I'm able to do more things than if I were to go back in Singapore, because I won't have this kind of opportunity. Yeah, because I need to prove myself, whatever. But here it's like, at least Deric gave me the chance, opportunity for me to at least be, head of something, lead of something, create something. And then that is something that I couldn't find in Singapore, but I can find here, I'll go for it. And then I know the risk, of course, money-wise, I'm taking a huge cut because currency is different. My primary currency is Singapore dollars, but I'm earning, a lot of people say, hey, when you're earning little, but for me, it's never about how much money I earn. It's about learning and the skills that I know that I can earn a lot more in the future. It's always about future. It's never about present most of the time for me. Yeah. So people think
what's one biggest, maybe a biggest or one most memorable win that makes this all worth it?
I think for me, there's a lot, but to just generalize everything, I'm able to help Sigma School to be a structured and also help automate certain process. I made Sigma School from a mold, from a clay into a very nice
Now, how does that benefit you?
For me, it's like I am the person who's doing the mold.
Okay, but how does that benefit you? Tell me about benefits to you.
Benefits to me. Now I know I know how to, for example, delegate work, creating tasks, prioritizing tasks, managing people. So all of these are things that benefited me because I wouldn't have this opportunity if I were to go back in Singapore
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you used to be a lot more like a solopreneur.
Yes.
One-man show.
Yes, one-man show.
So with us, you were given the authority and the power and the need to move a lot faster with the people that we have.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
and number two, I would say, also correct me if I'm wrong, maybe budgets to scale faster, budgets to run ads, budgets to use different tools here and there, budgets to have an office, to have I don't know.
It's I would say that more importantly for me is just opportunity to work with people to see changes in an organization. In a solopreneur, it's like the organization is yourself.
Have leverage to make impact.
Yes,
right?
correct. Yeah. So it's I know it sounds very fluffy to most, but in all honesty, that is something that I really wanted to do, right? And the opportunity was there. I took it. Yes, I took a huge cut in terms of currency, whatever, but I don't care.
But it's a story worth telling.
Exactly. And I learned a lot. And now I know the skills of operating a education business, for example, versus back then when I only knew how to only operate at a small scale. Now I know how to operate at a bigger scale.
Way different scale. I think both ways. I think you have helped us a lot, and I think both ways we both benefit.
You risk in hiring me.
In a way, for sure,
right?
for sure.
So that's it for this podcast. Hopefully you've learned something, and I think failure is just part of life, and have a great story to tell.
Yeah. So right after this, I'm gonna go run with Haris, and we're gonna aim for under 6 km, which I'm gonna fail again. But hey, look, you're just gonna fail so many times until you make it that one time, and then it's gonna make all those failures worth it.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, I did a 10 km run in 5 hours. I think, you succeeded, but so what? Doesn't mean anything, right? It's like, okay, I tried to run 10 km under 50 minutes and I failed. Yeah, you tried something. Yes. You tried to slay the dragon and you failed, right? But at some point you're gonna make it. And for me, I'm just don't say 50 minutes. I'm aiming for 60 minutes. So we'll get there. So maybe in the future when I watch back, then maybe
let's do